It is moving day for these boys in Ward M, Pennhurst State School and Hospital. Some of them are severely deficient, others even more so. They represent a fraction of the 3,000 patients at Pennhurst. A service grant has permitted the institution to select a group of girls and this group of boys to participate in a special program called psychosensory rehabilitation. The project symbolizes an institution's awareness of those who are forsaken because of mental retardation. A year before this move, most of these boys sat in the lonely shelter of themselves, many incapable of wanting anything, some lost in the weeds of withdrawal, some preferring a naked, primitive existence. Along this dark, drab hall of another ward across the grounds, a new group of youngsters prepares to enter the vacated M ward. It is a short walk, a few precious steps away. These boys, about to enter the psychosensory rehabilitation project, might have been destined to vegetate or rock away their existence, but now there is hope for them. On this walk, they will pass the movers bound for a cheerful atmosphere in a new ward. The boys who have undergone the service are outward, happy, talkative. The new group is faltering, slow, cautious. From the desolate environment of daily doldrums, the new group enters their ward, and the program doors of the future are open. Inside their new environment, when their coats are collected and when the excitement of the move wears off, the boys look around. Some, more perceptive than others, notice the change, the colorfully painted walls, the cartoons, the new beds, the improved toilet facilities, the concern of the women who laugh and joke with them. It's as though they had climbed out of a mental labyrinth, for those who notice. Perhaps the greatest change to greet them is their first meal in M Ward, a meal served on tables with dishes and silverware and glasses and tablecloths. They are now part of the service project. It will undertake to provide an active environment so that their slumbering resources can be developed. For these are whole people with eyes and hands and hearts and brains. Their only crime was to be born with overwhelming problems. Once it was thought that nothing could be done for the mentally deficient. They entered an institution to eventually die there. The forks and spoons of civilization are cumbersome tools to these orphans of society. This, then, is the first supper. The first day becomes the first lesson in the psychosensory rehabilitation of mind and body awareness, of better coordination, of improved attention and retention, of independence, instead of the emptiness and isolation of listlessly rocking on a wooden bench. Project Director M. Harris Schaefer guides the progress of the rehabilitation.
We have so many boys and girls who are severely retarded. They're often physically handicapped as well as mentally retarded. They've been isolated and left alone. They've had no opportunity for interaction with their peers or with staff, for that matter. This has been typical for this group. They're the most difficult to work with. Well, we can certainly attempt to bring new environments and a totality of programming to bear. The youngsters can learn, and they can learn to relate to others. How many will come out from themselves to the world that is really theirs, or should be theirs?
The new day begins at 5 in the morning. An attendant from the psychosensory rehabilitation staff greets the sleepy-eyed boys. Touch, so important to the program, is a constant means of communicating. This is Robert. Staff members will try to develop his slow, faltering intellect. The gaily painted walls, the dishes instead of metal trays, the clothes instead of camisoles, even the cartoons on the walls instead of cold bareness, all will help. Each task learned, each routine accepted by these children is one more step in the program's theme. The participation and contribution of living with themselves and others. Each successful attempt is rewarded, sometimes verbally by a pleasing intonation, repeating a name, a warm smile, sometimes physically by a piece of candy, or just a friendly pat on the shoulder. Team members meet in the rooms where the children will visit time and time again. There's a speech pathologist, audiologist, speech and hearing clinicians and aides, a physical therapist and her aide, an occupational therapist and her aide, and the music therapist. They will come to know, to understand, and try to help the children of M Ward. The nursing team and attendants will know the children even better, for improvements and regressions will magnify themselves on the ward. Problems arise even as the children sleep. Reports must be made, information must be passed along. In this cartoon world of M Ward, service is paramount. Even a simple chore such as brushing teeth allows the attendant to relate and communicate, to speak a name, to give direction and assurance. Through this relationship, Robert will encounter reality in the menial chores that define his limitations. Doors to the world outside are open to the boys of M Ward. Medical and dental examinations seek to explore the sensory hope for the future. This is Brad's first visit in the project's concern for dental health, and like any youngster, he is anxious. Brad will also visit the hospital for an examination, the ophthalmologist, the neurologist, the otolaryngologist. Project personnel realize that Brad's physical ability is necessary for rehabilitation. His records will be checked and rechecked by staff members and then carefully filed for further reference. The first days on M Ward are testing days, days filled with activities on which to build a tomorrow. No one connected with the institution or project believes in sudden miracles, but they do hope for slow, deliberate improvements. There are lengthy tests to administer, tests such as the Devereaux Child Behavior Rating Scale, or DCB. This one-to-one confrontation about a patient typifies the project's concern for individual attention.
We're going to start with a consideration of Alan's language communication skills. Can you tell me, Mrs. Pinelli, about what level he is now in language skill?
He's very limited.
He's very limited. If that's the case, then I'm going to begin rating him on language communication skills.
Other tests, such as the audiological examination, also determine habilitation capabilities. The Skinnerian conditioning method is used to hold Robert's attention.
Jeffrey!
The end of the day means a night ahead to M Ward. The evening passing of medication reflects the theme of the project. Somebody talk to me. Somebody recognize me. Somebody touch me.
Alan! Sing a song, Alan, for Marianne. Sing a song. Please. Say please. Say please, say please. Thank you. Thank you.
Even with the grant and the institution's cooperation, the project cannot hire enough personnel to go around. So the staff is reduced during the night. Youngsters may wander listlessly through the dormitory. The gears of the service slow down and the night becomes a treadmill for dreams or nightmares. The weeks and months are measured in tedious therapies. The sounds of the outer world begin to penetrate, heard at first in hourglass softness, then louder and louder, until there comes that splash of reality.
Can you march, Alan? Look, Alan. Alan. Come on, stamp your feet. Come on.
Therapies interact in their goal of communication, habilitation, and to touch a sleeping consciousness. Hands and minds are kept busy as attention span is stretched into seconds, then minutes, and perhaps someday into hours.
The main object of music therapy is not to teach the child any specific musical ability, but rather to use music as a tool to raise the functioning level of the child. You see here actually the warm-up session that we use at the beginning of every period. We use this in order to calm the child down and get him ready to actually work in the session. Music therapy works in three main areas. We work on the emotional level of the child. We also work physically with the child. If the child is handicapped in any way, we try to do the exercises to music that will strengthen the muscles or take care of the handicap situation. We also work in the area of concepts. We use symbol action songs. We also use a variety of games utilizing Follow the Leader, which tends to give the child structure in a situation and makes him adhere to either a vocal or a visual command. And it's hoped that it will carry over in the ward situation.
Occupational therapy not only develops muscle coordination, but it refines ocular tracking and an awareness toward perceptual motor skills. Staff members vary in their aptitude for communication, their sensitivity, their perceptions. There are many personnel changes, for it's difficult to retain young, energetic workers, but new ones take their place and the program continues. From music and occupational therapies, Randy begins to allow the world to touch him, and in turn he reaches out.
What do you see? What is this, Jeffrey?
The other therapies accompany him into the world of language and speech. Again, he relates on a one-to-one ratio. He sees, and he learns about what he sees.
I. Jeffrey, I.
Jeffrey,
I. Good boy.
The project stresses repetition, word after word after word. They slowly make their way into Randy's vocabulary. Some are quickly forgotten, but others are retained. His name is repeated 100 times during the day, each time enforcing a self-image, a concept, a command, a direction. The therapies continue throughout the winter months in the basement rooms below M Ward. But the pleasant days of spring permit the staff to conduct the work outside. The children have been on M Ward for 6 months. Dr. Leopold Potkonski and Dr. Harris M. Schaefer continually watch for signs of improvement.
Doctor, this is the equipment that we received through contributions to the Psychosensory Fund, Memorial Fund, and from parents and friends of youngsters in the program.
Well, I see that they're enjoying it, except for Robert, who's in the corner. Of course, he's one of our problem patients. He's been quite withdrawn, although lately he's been showing some evidences of more socialization than he had in the past. Randy there, playing with the sand, you get a feeling that for the first time that he's realizing what the texture of this sand is, and he's really enjoying it as it goes through his fingers. And Brad, walking on the balancing walking board, seems to be enjoying it, and the recreational therapist appears to be doing a good job with him, because he too was one of our boys who was rather withdrawn, apparently did nothing on the ward heretofore, but has shown relatively good progress since that time.
That's quite a learning experience over there for him, isn't it? I'm not sure I could do it.
Well, that shows accomplishment, shows progress.
By the middle of summer, boys are no longer confined to a single building, to a single floor. Now the staff is free to help other individuals. This double-edged freedom is another goal of the psychosensory rehabilitation. Through intensified treatment and improved facilities, the patients become more independent. They demand less attention and command more self-help skills. The subtle behavioral improvements become more apparent as the months build toward a year. Near the end of the summer, the boys visit the institution's zoo. There are only a few animals in this homemade zoo, but the experience stimulates the children to reach out, to run, to express themselves outwardly, where before there was only a silent, methodical rocking. The visit also demonstrates an increased attention span, the coordination of thoughts and actions, the capability to remain dressed. Even Alan, who has fallen behind because of a 3-month illness which required hospitalization, now demonstrates improvement. It is as if a shell has opened.
Are you going to march, Bobby?
Yeah.
Okay, let's march.
But there are many doors, and the therapies must continue lest they close again. Robert has excelled in music. He is allowed to develop at his own pace, and now he can select his favorite record, lead his own march, and express himself through rhythm. The therapist uses music as a reward. Robert will not respond to candy, but he can be reached by turning on the music. Reward can be the simple flick of a turntable knob.
Green. That's green. Green.
Occupational therapy begins to touch Alan's senses. Instead of persistently biting his hand in bitter rejection, his fingers bend with dexterity. His hands search for the correct block. His movements are quickened, more determined. His attention lingers on simple tasks once impossible to his closed intellect. Occupational therapy is not merely a game of blocks and pegs. It introduces practical tasks that will help Alan function in a real world of buttons and shoelaces. The walls of the occupational therapy room express an awakening by the children of M. Ward. The primitive drawings represent progress toward habilitation within a closed world. Sometimes in groups, sometimes alone, children leave for other quarters in the institution. They are placed in more advanced cottages, environments to motivate future growth. Not all the children advance. Robert represents only a fraction. Some who entered into M. Ward with him have left for other wards. Others remain. Robert's departure is not dramatic. It's almost routine, if not for the expectations of the attendant, who wonders how Robert will accept his new friends and new surroundings. Robert's psychosensory rehabilitation does not end as he walks across the grounds toward his destination in a ward called I-1. There is more individual freedom, personal lockers, and more companionship awaiting him in the new environment. There is a higher level of communication. Students from a nearby high school have volunteered to entertain and help the children. Robert senses the changed atmosphere and settles into a happy and outward mood. Here he will experience new stimuli, new aids toward his development. Before long, he will attend a pre-vocational workshop. In the converted basement, he will join with other students from the project to receive evaluation and training. He will learn to adapt skills to real working situations. For 3.5 hours a day, 17.5 hours a week, project participants are involved in more than 80 different job sample evaluations, time trials, sorting, judgment, motor and finger dexterity, timing, related skills that may help them obtain basic jobs in sheltered workshops and perhaps someday in related industries. Robert's new experiences will also consist of attending a school with his friends. These awkward first steps may someday help him enter a special school on the outside. Robert and other children of the Psychosensory Project are communicating their achievements by selecting the correct response in the discriminatory learning laboratory. Here, research is being conducted between children in the project and those who have not experienced it.
I do see a difference between the kids that haven't been on the program and the kids that have been. I think one very clear thing to me is that our program helps these kids increase their attention span. The kids that have been on HIP respond more frequently. Presumably these kids are getting some kind of an education in this program, and one test of an education is whether you can use it on a new problem. Well, we've given them a new problem. Of course, if you can't keep your attention on a new problem, you can't solve it. If you can keep your attention on it, you can respond more, and you're more likely to find the solution, and I think that's what we're going to find happens.
Like a mirror of the program. We have, of course, given them many problems in many areas: music, therapy, recreation therapy, speech. Can they generalize what they have learned to a new problem and react to it? Our children can do so, and I think the data is showing that they are doing so in a more structured manner than the non-HIP children. The other children seem to be very erratic.
Quite anxious to see him.
I'll bet he's
He's been
anxious.
counting the
So yeah,
days.
he's probably counting the days.
He's been
He
counting.
looked at the calendar and he started to count the days when we told him we were going to pick him up then.
The project demonstrates success in other ways. Once the shell opens, once the outside permeates the darkness, there is hope that at least a few of these isolated orphans of society may eventually return to their homes and families. For some, like Alex, a visit by his parents may eventually mean a homecoming. For others, placement in a foster home. The Psychosensory Rehabilitation Project exists within an institution which has come under attack because of its outdated facilities. But with new funds, the institution is attempting improvements and refinements. Administrators and personnel have been watching the project with the hope of expansion. This means more dedicated personnel, improved facilities for the entire institution, such as music, occupational and recreational therapies, more workshops, more schooling, new buildings, all for the effort of mind and body awareness toward a world outside. And inside their shells, they wait for somebody to touch them.